The first thing we're going to cover is I just want to go over the final exam details again because there's been a small change made regarding the release time and the due date. I'm going to go over that with you. I will discuss what our plan is for next class, which is Wednesday when your term paper, when your essay is due. And then we are going to continue with our editing. But the way we're going to do this is we're going to redo, or we're going to go through those steps 1, 2, 3, the ones we've done again, but we're going to do it really quickly now. Because now it's really just going to be you checking, yeah, I did that, yeah, I did that, I did that, I did that, as a way of giving yourself more check marks. It's like, okay, yeah, that's good, that's good, that's good. And that's part of this self-editing. You don't have to memorize doing these steps. You just have to give yourself time to go back and do them so you can feel confident about your essay by the time it's done. So let me start with the final exam details. So the format has not changed. You're going to answer one research question in an essay, 10 points for your outline, 10 points for the final version of your essay. And the whole thing is out of 20. Where there has been a change is the timing. There was a meeting with my department, and all the English professors decided that they were going to give 12 hours, not 24 hours to all students. And that we were going to release it before final exams start in your other classes. So the change that's been made is the question that you're going to be answering is going to be released next Wednesday, April 7th at 1:30 p.m. So we all have class Wednesday morning from 8 to 10:50. The final exam, which is a take-home, means it will be available to you Wednesday afternoon, Vancouver time at 1:30 p.m., and you'll have 12 hours to complete the outline and the essay. It'll be due by 1:30 a.m. Vancouver time, partly because the exam period starts the next day. Now, I want to make this clear. Nothing actually changes in regard to the amount of work you're doing. Because if you recall, when I explained this to you last week and the week before, the final exam is really 3 to 4 hours work, like it would be if you were doing an in-class exam. You just had an option of when you would start it and when you would stop it in a 24-hour period. And so now you have an option of when you're going to start it and finish it in a 12-hour period. That's all that's changed. You still are doing the same amount of work. You're just doing it in a smaller window. So you don't actually have to start at 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 7th. If you have a conflict, meaning you have classes all day Wednesday after our class, let's say you have a class from noon to 1 and a Wednesday class, you need to email me as soon as possible. I will ask for a copy of your class schedule so I can see your weekly schedule. And this would be from my AC. And then I will determine whether or not I will adjust your start time or your due time. But if you have one class on Wednesday afternoon, that's not considered a conflict because remember, it's a 3 to 4 hour exam. You can still fit it in. But if you have class with me at 8 a.m., then another one at noon, and then another one, so 3 classes in a day, well, at that point, I have to give you time to sleep and rest. So at that point, that is considered, okay, this is a conflict. So what you will need to do is make a copy. So this can be a screenshot of your class schedule for this semester, like what your classes look like, your timetable, and you need to send that to me by Canvas email. And I will then make a case-by-case determination. Is that okay, everyone? But as I said, one class after ours does not is not considered a conflict. 2 or 3 classes is considered a conflict. Okay. That's actually the only change. This Wednesday, after you hand in your term paper essay, you will be made 3 required readings are going to be made available to you. I'm going to just email the class. Here's where you can find the 3 readings. When the question releases, you'll be given the question and you'll be given the 4th reading. Your only job is to use those 4 readings in your essay. That's it. No other reading, no other research is necessary. Are there any questions then regarding the timing or other details of the final exam? Thanks, Kersimmer. And I'll just explain the reason for the change. In semesters past, the first day of final exams, that was the day all the English exams ran. And so what we would do as as the English professors, we just put the take-home exam during that time. It was only last week that one of you emailed me and saying, well, actually, the college has put exams on that first day for different classes. And that's when I realized many of you were going to be working on this final exam and maybe 2 others in the same day, and that was too much. So that's the reason the change has been made. Okay. So, Kersimmer, my plan is to have class next Wednesday, but I'm going to be negotiating with all of you regarding what time you want to start, if you want to sleep in, or what time you want to end, because it's only going to be about a 1-hour review class in preparation for the final exam. And I'm also going to be having an office hour that day if anyone wants further feedback on your research essay, which will be handed back to you by then. So it's not going to be a full 3-hour class. And so for Scarlett and others that are maybe in different time zones, this means you're going to get a chance to get some sleep before starting the final exam. I set it at 1:30 a.m., knowing that for some students who are in Seoul, Korea, it's about 6 o'clock in the morning. For students that are on the east coast of China, it is, I think it's 5:30 in the morning. And for students that are in India, it's about 2:30 in the morning. But in each case, if you're here in Vancouver, you can just do it while you're awake in the afternoon. For others, they should be able to get up in the morning, maybe a bit earlier than usual, and still do the final exam in 4 to 5 hours. So it took me a while to find a time that worked, but that's the one I picked. So before I continue this, next class, we're going to meet. I will go over any questions people have, and then the majority of next class, which is Wednesday, will be an office hour. Because remember, your essay is due at the end of, not the beginning of, the end of Wednesday's class. So if you have any last minute questions, you want to get feedback on something individually, I'll be available for that. But I do not have a lecture planned. Nothing formal planned for Wednesday. And at the end of today's class, we will negotiate when we want to start class on Wednesday. Okay. Reminder, The editing process takes up any time you have from when you complete a draft to when it's due. And most importantly, the majority of the editing process is you checking your ideas, not the proofreading, not the spelling and things like that. It really is checking your ideas. And that's what you were doing last class. So I'm going to ask you all to look at your essay right now. And we're going to check to make sure that there's a few details regarding the assignment instructions that you have met. In order to do this, I am going to open up the details for the assignment. In the form of the rubric. Now, either in the chat, say yes. In the chat, your response to my question is going to be yes, no, kind of, just like last class. Is your essay currently between 1,100 and 1,200 words in length? This does not include the works cited. This does not include the title. Yes, no, kind of. And same as last class, get yourself a piece of paper to make notes on. Simmer, could you ask that question for everyone to see? So if the answer to this question is yes, meaning your word length is between 1100 to 1100 to 1200, remember that any changes you're going to make really have to be same amount, meaning if you're changing a sentence that is 10 words long, your changes need to be about the same length. If you are below 1100, well, then you're going to be adding more. If you're above 1200, you're going to be removing. Gersimer has a question here. He's tried to use 6 different articles. Currently, he's using only 3. Is that correct, Gersimer? Okay, and he's already over 1,200 words. So what assumptions could we make about the way Gersimer has written this? If using only 3 articles, he's over 1,200 words. Where has he used the majority of his extra words? Where do you think, everyone?
Explanation.
Probably his explanations are quite lengthy. So that's one place, Gersimer. Summarize your explanations. Rather than being a long sentence or several sentences, you want to shrink those down to 1 sentence each. And so this would require just find your explanation, read it. And do you remember the trick from earlier this semester when you'd read a passage and you would underline, here's the most important parts or ideas from a sentence? And then you would use that to write a summary sentence? That's the trick that you would use here to fix that particular problem. And you would do that just for your explanation sentences. Gersimer, do you think that might help? Yeah, so you would add main ideas from the 6 articles in the form of either a quotation, though if you're already at 1,200 words, quotation may not be best. Paraphrase may not even be best. You want to shorten them all. So summarize the main idea and put a citation in, and then explain it as efficiently as you can, meaning as short as, like, aim for 1 sentence per explanation, and not a long sentence either. So that would be how, if you're already over 1,200 words, you can check what you've done and make improvements. Okay. Find your thesis. Does your essay include a thesis? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. Read your research question. And for many of you, you've used this as your title. And then read your thesis. Does your thesis answer your question directly? Meaning, if I was stupid and the only thing I was going to read was your question and your thesis, have I gotten an answer to your question from reading it? Yes, no, kind of. So Gurleen indicated kind of. Gurleen, what are you putting in your notes right now? Thesis needs a little bit more detail to make sure it answers the research question. And that would be the work you're going to be doing between today and next class when it's due to make that improvement. But thank you for checking, Gurleen. Essay is coherently organized, meaning, do the 3 body paragraphs, actually first, are there 3 body paragraphs? No more, no less. Yes, no. Okay. Do the 3 body paragraphs follow the organizational style of the essay? Meaning problem, solution, cause, effect, compare and contrast? How do you know? How would the reader know?
Because in the starting of the paragraph, I mentioned the first line.
That's great.
I have written.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I was meaning to ask with that question. The beginning sentence of each paragraph basically tells the reader, here's what's going to happen next. Because the reader is stupid. So you're telling the reader a story, so you have to tell them, here's what's going to happen next. Otherwise, they get lost. So great job. In your 3 body paragraphs, have you used sources? Meaning in-text citations. Yes, no, kind of. Great. Are there 6 different in-text citations? Meaning 6 different articles. Okay, and Gersimer had already talked to us about that. He still needs to find a few more, but you know exactly what your first work is now after class ends, Gersimer. It's about finding those other 3 articles and figuring out where you can put them in. Now, go to your reference list. Works cited. Are there 3 academic journal articles there? Yes, no, or can't tell. Great. Are there 3 non-academic, meaning magazine or newspaper articles there? Okay. And finally, are all of the sources in your reference list organized alphabetically by the last or family name of the first writer? Yes, no, kind of. Okay, thank you, Gurleen. So, Gurleen, make a note to yourself. You have to organize them alphabetically. So, Bao is indicating that she could not find one piece of information for her citation, the DOI, the Document Object Identifier. I think that's what it stands for. So, not all articles have DOIs, Bowen. So, the goal is to include as much information as is easily identifiable. So, if you go to the library page and do a database search, most the information you find there, that's usually as much as is available. If there is a DOI, it'll be there. If there's no DOI, because remember, a DOI is just a link. It's just a web link. You could use a web link that you have access to. Or you just don't have to include it. Okay. That was step 1, where you compared your essay to the requirements for the assignments. How much time did it take you to recheck that right now? Like, if you just think about the work you just did, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes? Gurleen, was it 10 minutes because I was giving directions? Or was it 10 minutes of you working and focusing? The point I want to make here is you weren't working for 10 minutes straight there. It was a little bit. You did almost all of this in less than 5 minutes. It can be very quick once you remember, okay, I got to do this first to make sure I didn't miss anything important. Step 1, as you get faster at doing a self-edit for yourself, is about 5 minutes maximum. It can be even faster. But you're just basically checking. Did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? Why are you doing this? Because, well, that's what your professor wanted you to include in your assignment. One more question for you all. And this isn't included here, and it's not in the requirements, but it's something I just remembered. Is your essay currently double-spaced? Okay, so mixes of yes, a few no's. So, Bowen, do you know what double space is? So, double space, let me open it. And the reason I remember this is I realized I forgot to include it in my instructions to all of you as a requirement. But I'm just putting anything in here. So currently this is what's called single spaced. There's no blank line between each line. So to double space it, all you have to do is highlight it and go here where it's paragraph, line spacing, double, and watch what happens. There's just now an empty blank line between what you have written. And it's simply there to make it easier for the reader to read what you've written. And it's just, what's the word? It's less stress on your eyes when you're reading. And so I would ask that before you hand it in, please make sure it's double spaced. You're not going to lose marks if it's not, because I forgot to include it on the details or the requirements. Okay. Step 1, done. Now, go to your thesis statement. And while you all go to your thesis statement, I had a question from Gerline on how to put in a header. If you're using Microsoft Word, click on Insert. And you'll see there's a button that just says Header. And then you would play with it to figure out where you want to locate it and what you're going to type. I do not know how to do it in Google Docs because I don't use Google Docs. I use primarily Word. Sorry, let me get rid of this. Okay, you've all gone to your thesis. Is it the right type of thesis for this kind of paper? Meaning, does the thesis match your research question? Yes, no, kind of. Excuse me. Okay, so Gerline, make a note to yourself. Thesis needs to be perhaps a bit more specific or better match your research question. Can your thesis be more specific? Yes, no, kind of. I should probably add more detail to this. Can your thesis be more specific to answer your question? And Gersimer, that is, if you're having trouble finding your thesis, how is your audience going to, because they didn't do the writing. Your thesis should be the last sentence of your introduction paragraph. And you could even be really obvious because the reader is stupid. The thesis for this essay is, or the purpose of this essay is. You can even start it like that to make it idiot proof. And that's idiot proof for your audience, not you. I just want to be clear about that. But these types of signaling words where you signal to the reader, here's what I'm doing now, much like as Gerline said, the beginning of each of her body paragraphs says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. You can do the exact same thing with your thesis. Okay. Excuse me. Does your thesis explain the significance, the main idea, the reason the reader is reading? Like, how will they be better off learning what you're telling them? Yes, no, kind of. Excuse me. Okay, so Gerline, again, on your notes, add this to your list. Why is my thesis important? How is the reader better off? When you can answer that, that's what you're going to include in your thesis. So we're going to check a connection. This is partly step 2, step 3. I want you to read your thesis right now. Now read the topic sentence, the first sentence of body paragraph 1. Now read the last sentence of body paragraph 1, your conclusion sentence. Are these 3 sentences directly connected to each other? Yes, no, kind of. Okay, so for Gersimer, make a note to yourself. Why are the 3 sentences not connected to each other? When you have an answer to that, you know how to fix it. But right now, your thesis should be connected to the first and last sentence of body paragraph 1. The way to check this is just read those 3 sentences together, and the connection should be really clear to someone who's stupid, meaning your reader. Now, go back, read your thesis one more time, and then read the first and last sentence of body paragraph 2. Are these 3 sentences easily connected? Meaning, is it obvious how these 3 are connected to each other? Yes, no, kind of. Exactly, Gersimer. That's the purpose of the introduction and conclusion of body paragraphs. They connect back to the thesis. Because the purpose of that paragraph is to prove your thesis is correct, or part of your thesis is correct. Okay, we're on a roll. Naomi, you look like you're really focusing hard right now.
Because the first sentence in my paragraph 2 may be too long, because I need to include more details, but it makes the sentence too long, so...
Okay, so here's my question for you. Why did you have to include more details?
Because I need to match the thesis. If I...
So here, I'm going to stop you here. Do you have to match the entire thesis, or do you have to match the part of the thesis, that you're doing in that paragraph?
Just a part of a half of thesis.
Yeah, because remember, to prove your thesis, you are breaking up what you're saying into 3 body paragraphs to prove the thesis. So in body paragraph 1, you're proving part of your thesis. Body paragraph 2, you're proving part of your thesis. Body paragraph 3, you're proving part of your thesis. Together, from all of those body paragraphs, you prove your thesis. So no one paragraph is going to prove your thesis. So when you look at your topic sentence now, Naomi, do you have just the details for that part, or have you included more than you needed?
Because I use 3 examples in my paragraph 2. body paragraph 2. So I'm just wondering that my first sentence in my body paragraph 2 need to include all three examples.
No, no. All you would really do in the topic sentence is indicate these are the types of examples regarding the style that will be discussed in this paragraph, and the reason why. Because what are you're trying to show the causes or similarities or effects or solutions, whatever it is. So remember, your reader is stupid. You're just telling them, here's what I'm about to do.
Oh, okay.
But you don't have to tell them every last detail. It's more like an introduction of, here's what's going to happen in the next 200 words. Roughly.
Okay.
Like generally speaking. Is that okay, Naomi?
Yes, okay.
Okay, because you're smiling now, you don't look as nervous.
Okay, thank
you. And for everyone else, no problem. And for everyone else, this is part of the benefit of having your camera on. I can tell when you need more help. When your camera's off, I have no idea. Okay. Reread your thesis and read the first and last sentence of body paragraph 3. Are these 3 sentences directly connected or easily connected? Is it easy to see how they're connected? Yes, no, kind of. And Gurleen, again, connected. Once you have an answer to that, you know the detail you want to add or change to these sentences. Excuse me. Okay. You've now all checked that your thesis is connected to the beginning and end of each of your body paragraphs. Some of you were very confident with, oh yeah, it's connected. Some of you were like, oh no, that one's not, or that one's not. So now you can know where to make those improvements. So hopefully, again, you gained a bit more confidence. Now, we're going to end this step by me asking the same question as step 1. If you think about just the work you did, not me talking, not the conversations we've just had, but just how long it took you to check this connection. How many minutes did this actually take you? 10? 15? Okay, 10. Bow and saying, well, 5 or 7. Like, it wasn't actually that long when you're reading it. It's like, read that, read these 2 sentences, yes, no, kind of. Read this, read those 2 sentences, yes, no, kind of. It's really about 5 minutes work. So, again, for 5 minutes work, you've checked an important connection in your essay. But at the same time, you've also gained confidence for 5 minutes work. A lot of confidence. So what I'm doing here by pointing this out to you is I'm really trying to sell you on doing the self-editing strategies every time you write an essay. Because think about how you're feeling right now. It's like, okay, I feel good about that one. I feel good about that one. Okay, that one's not as good, but I now know how to fix it. And that's the most important thing. I now know how to fix it because I'm familiar with the right type of questions to ask. Well, does it connect? No. Okay. Why doesn't it connect? Well, here's why. Oh, okay, that's the detail I need to add. And so, self-editing, your own writing, once you get used to asking these types of questions and doing this type of thinking, it becomes incredibly rewarding, incredibly easy to improve your essays. And you're going to see this on Wednesday when you finish your essay and you compare it to your draft from last week. You're going to say, oh, wow, I've made a lot of improvements. And they're all little improvements, but this new essay, the one you're going to hand in on Wednesday, I can tell it looks better. Like, I can actually tell where all the improvements are and how it'll make it easier for my reader to understand what I'm saying. So my goal, last class, this class, class after, is really to sell you on using these self-editing strategies for every essay you write. And perhaps the most important thing, what you're learning right now, your draft doesn't need to be perfect. Your first draft, it just needs to get your ideas down and your thinking down. You can make all of these improvements after you've got your draft and you've got something to look at, and now you start checking for the connections. Does that explanation make sense to everyone? Okay. Now, jump to body paragraph 1. We're going to check body paragraph 1, but we're going to use a slightly different order. Read your topic sentence of body paragraph 1. Next, read your first example and your explanation. And answer this question. Does your explanation, your example and explanation, answer your topic sentence? Are they directly connected? Yes, no, kind of. Thank you, Pawan. Thank you, Pawan. Thank you, Gurleen. Others? Are your example, evidence, and explanation directly connected to your topic sentence? Yes, no, kind of. Great. If you have a second example in this paragraph, find it, read your explanation, and then answer the same question. Does your second example and explanation directly connect or answer to your topic sentence in this paragraph? Yes, no, kind of. Okay, great. And finally, read your conclusion sentence of body paragraph 1. Does this sentence make clear why your main idea is convincing, or what has been learned in this paragraph? Like, there's different ways of asking this question, but does it explain to the reader, oh, here's what you just learned, or here's what you now understand from reading this paragraph? Yes, no, kind of. Great job. So right now, most of you should be feeling really good about your body paragraph one. Saying, you know what? I did everything I needed to. I've got my research in there. I've got my explanations in there. But more importantly, it connects back to my topic sentence, which means it connects to my thesis. It connects to my conclusion sentence, which means it connects to my thesis. So you should be feeling really confident, not just about the writing, but the fact that, you know what? All of the ideas in here, all the research I did, all the explanation of the ideas I did connect backwards and forwards. So in both directions. So, great job. Now, let's jump to body paragraph 2. Read your topic sentence and then read your first example and your first explanation all together at the same time. Does your example, evidence, and explanation directly connect or answer the topic sentence? Yes, no, kind of. Now go to the second example or evidence in this paragraph. Read that and your explanation. Does this second example and explanation connect back to your topic sentence? Yes, no, kind of. Great, Caroline. And if you have a third, do the exact same thing. And Gersimer, kind of, okay. You always ask the same question if your answer is kind of or no. Well, why not? Whatever your answer is to that, the why not, that's the detail that you want to add to make that connection stronger. Does that make sense, Gersimer? Perfect. Now read your conclusion sentence. Does this sentence make clear why your main idea is convincing? Or we can Let's ask it a slightly different question. Does this conclusion sentence make clear what the reader has learned in this paragraph? How they're better off for learning this in this paragraph? Yes, no, kind of. Okay, so Gersimer, no, that's great. That's a... Now ask yourself why it does not. The answer to that question for you is now the detail you want to add into this sentence. Same thing for you, Gerline. Ask yourself, well, why doesn't it? Whatever your answer is what you want to add into your conclusion sentence. Now jump to body paragraph 3. Read your topic sentence and read your first example and explanation. Does this first example and explanation directly answer or connect to your topic sentence? Yes, no, kind of. Okay, so again, Gersimer, if it's why not? Whatever your answer is the detail you want to add. Read your second example and explanation if you have it. Does this second example and explanation directly answer or connect back to your topic sentence? Yes, no, kind of. Okay, so that just means you wouldn't be doing looking for the second example, Gerline. So you basically repeat this step for every example and explanation you have. If you have 10, you do it 10 times. If you have 1, you do it 1 time. Great. Now reread your conclusion sentence. Does this sentence make it clear why your main idea or what you talked about in this paragraph is convincing or worth reading about or worth learning about? Yes, no, kind of. So Gersimer is asking if in the evaluation we have to talk about every problem and solution we've discussed so far. What did others do? So let's say you wrote a problem solution essay. Would you evaluate your problems or would you evaluate the solutions you've given? What would you focus on in an evaluation paragraph? Gersimmer's on the right track here. If you're going to evaluate something, you're not going to evaluate the problem. You already did that by giving certain problems. And then you gave what you think are good solutions to it. So when it comes time to your evaluation, you're going to evaluate, well, here's the solutions I gave, and maybe here's how realistic it is that they might work. So as Andy indicates, he just summarized his solutions and emphasized the connection. But he could also, at this point, Andy could give a bit of his own opinion in his explanations of, and I think this one has a good chance of working because, or I think this one is unrealistic because. So for Bowen, you don't have to go back and go give all your problems and solutions again. Instead, you would focus on, I gave these solutions, here's how likely it is that they're going to work or not work. If it's cause and effect, what you're evaluating is that link. Does this thing always cause the following effect? Yes, no, sometimes. Just because I don't sleep well, does that mean I'm going to do poorly on my assignment? Yes, all the time. No, never, or sometimes. If I'm doing a similarities and differences, well, if I'm evaluating again, is everyone going to say or agree with the similarities I've given, the differences I've given, the advantages or disadvantages? Well, why or why not? Why should they agree with you? And Gersimmer, he indicates that he just summarized all his ideas. You would not want to do that because Gersimmer, you've already got two issues. One, you're over 1,200 words. And two, you've only gotten 3 of the articles you needed. So this is one place where you could cut back by actually bringing in more research. So you're not summarizing ideas you've already talked about, but giving new ideas in your evaluation. Otherwise, this paragraph for you is going to seem very, very repetitive. I hope that helps with a few ways to think about this third paragraph. And the reason I'm not being specific here, because each of you wrote a slightly different evaluation. Like, I can't compare Naomi and Bowen's paragraph 3s, their evaluations, because they were trying to evaluate different things, very different things. So this ends up being the most unique paragraph in your essay, because this really is you evaluating your own thinking, what you've already written, the ideas, the connections you're trying to make. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Steps 1, 2, and 3. You have checked your essay against the assignment details. You have checked your thesis about 9 different times now. And you've checked all of your body paragraphs. We started this at 8:20. Actually, 8:15. So 45 minutes. In that 45 minutes, have you been working solid for 45 minutes? No. Of that 45 minutes, how much work have you actually done if you were to add it up in minutes? $15, probably closer to 20, but you've done about 15 to 20 minutes work. Are you feeling more confident about your essay in that 15 to 20 minutes of work? Are you feeling as though you've improved parts of your essay in that 15 to 20 minutes? Okay. In this way, I'm trying to sell you on the need to do this step and use these strategies, because you will feel a lot better about your essays before you hand them in. So I'm going to suggest we take a 10-minute break to 9:15. And at that point, we're going to come back and we're going to do step 4, which is just focused on your conclusion paragraph. Remember, we didn't even get there last class. And all we've done this class is we've redone the work from steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. Sorry, 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to take a break for 10 minutes. And then when we come back, we'll look at the conclusion. Great job. Okay, I'll see everyone in 10 minutes time at 9:15. He's got a lot of changes to make in some paragraphs. I have a very specific suggestion for Gersimer and anyone else who ever finds himself in this situation. You may look at what you've written when you're doing a self-edit and realize, okay, intro, good. Body paragraph 1, good. Body paragraph 3, good. Body paragraph 2, terrible. That might happen. Conclusion, so-so. So if you find that one paragraph is not at the same quality of your others, meaning you're not confident in it, you can try to make changes to a bad paragraph. You can try to make improvements to a bad paragraph. Sure. But it's easier just to go step and make a new outline for that paragraph. Because you now know those steps. So you're not making an outline for the entire essay. You're just saying that paragraph doesn't work. I've checked it a few times. It needs a lot of work. I can try to fix what's already there. But that's kind of like if you have a car and you got to get in a car crash and you got damage to a car. Will painting it fix the body damage? Like the dents, the broken lights, things like that? Will just painting a car that's been in a car crash fix it? What do you think? And this is an honest question for you all. Think about this example. You've been driving your car, you hit another car. The front light's broken, the front door is damaged, all kinds of damage to it. You're looking at it and saying, like, I can still drive it. But, I'm sure if I just put some new paint on it, no one will be able to tell. Okay, so you're seeing this. Okay, so if there's a really big problem with a car, you can't really fix it by just putting new paint on it. You have to fix the weaknesses, the damage to it. So if you identify, this was the feedback I was trying to give Gersimer. If you identify that one paragraph is just as the others, not even close, it doesn't do you want a paragraph out. Not it. Just throw out how you wrote that paragraph and say, okay, I got an hour. Let me just make a new outline for that paragraph. What research do I want to use? What explanations? And then you just write that paragraph in a draft and you put that into your draft essay. You fixed the one really bad paragraph you noticed. Staring at the same bad paragraph saying, well, how do I make what looks bad pretty? That often when you're trying to make something that looks bad pretty, or something that has lots of problems in it, error-free, is more time consuming than just starting that one thing over and building a new one. So, Gersimer, that's my feedback to you. You're worried that you have a lot of work to do. You're going to end up taking a lot more time if you're looking at what you have and you keep asking, how do I fix? Because the reason you need to fix it is it's not a well-written paragraph. It's probably not even a good paragraph. The easiest way to fix it is remove that paragraph and just go back to the outline. Line for that one paragraph. You will feel a lot more confident about that writing. The outline, the draft, you paste that paragraph in your essay. You'd be okay, yeah, I fixed it. This is much better because started. You can just take an entire paragraph out and put a new paragraph in to replace it. Not have to worry about how it connects to everything else. So major changes can be made to your writing if you outlined first. Because you outlined it first, you separated everything. You thought about, going to do this first, this second, this third. And if you find what you did second or third didn't work, you can remove it and just rewrite that one part. Okay. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to move into the conclusion paragraph. I'm going to ask you all right now to reread to yourself your conclusion paragraph. So just read it to yourself. Take 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Okay. Now, go back to your introduction paragraph. Read your entire introduction. Two minutes. I'm going to ask you some questions about your introduction first. In your introduction, at the near the beginning, so in the first few sentences, does it introduce the topic to the reader? Thank you, Carleen. Does it explain why this topic is of interest to the reader? Like, So the introduction is doing two things. It introduces the topic, but it also explains generally why it's important or why it's useful for the reader to think about this topic. How it maybe connects to them personally or some experience that they may have had or will have. So as Gerline indicates, maybe. Okay, Gerline, think about, well, why not? Whatever your answer is to that question is the detail you now want to include at the beginning of your introduction. Now, question about your conclusion. Does your conclusion do more than repeat what you already said? Meaning, is it more than just a summary? Yes, no, kind of. If you have to think about this for more than 3 seconds, the answer is probably no or kind of. Okay, so Bowen just noticed it seems to be a bit repetitive. Gerline, maybe it seems to be repetitive. It's not really explaining anything more than what I've already done. So I'm going to draw your attention to this. Does it explain the importance? Like this word keeps popping up at the self-edit. The best way to think of the conclusion is as follows. I said this in body paragraph 1. It was important because. If you're talking to someone, the reader is stupid. There's 2 things that might have happened to the reader since they read your body paragraph 1. They might have forgotten what you were saying or what you said, or they missed the connection. They missed the importance. They didn't understand why it was important. So what you were really doing in the conclusion is reminding the reader of the importance of the things that you said. So the conclusion paragraph connects back to, in this case, 4 specific sentences. Chris Zimmer, I'm going to need you to ask that again. I don't understand. Importance is important for both of you. So when we're looking at just the conclusion, what it is actually summarizing is the importance of what you said, not what you said. So you're not repeating what you said. You're reminding the reader, this is why it was important for you to learn this. So it can follow this order. Your conclusion can follow this order. The first thing your conclusion should do is explain the importance of the thesis. So, in order to do this, you would summarize your thesis and then explain why it was important for the reader to understand it or agree with it. So, by reading and understanding my thesis, the reader, the audience has gained, has grown, has learned the following. part of the reason we did not do step 4 last class was until you were really confident with all of your body paragraphs, it makes no sense to then explain the importance of each one. So you all spent some time making improvements. So the first sentence of your conclusion reminds the reader or explains to the reader, here's why my thesis was important. So you don't have to repeat your thesis. And in fact, repeating your thesis, it wouldn't be useful. You're explaining the greater importance of your thesis. The reader, having now read and agreed with your thesis, is now what? How are they better off? Does that explanation make sense? I'm going to start with that. Does that explanation make sense of the first sentence of your conclusion? And I'm going to need some feedback from you all. So the conclusion paragraph can follow this structure. It discusses your thesis, it discusses the conclusion of body paragraph 1, it discusses the conclusion of body paragraph 2, it discusses the conclusion of body paragraph 3, and then there's a general statement. So a conclusion for this essay that you've written would be 5 sentences long. And it does the following things. First, it explains the importance of the thesis. My thesis in this essay was important because. Does that first point make sense to everyone? So as Bowen indicates, in her thesis, there are elements of body paragraph 1, 2, and 3. Does she talk about those in this sentence, or does she just focus on the importance? Just the importance. Because Bowen, you're going to be covering those other body paragraphs in a few moments, in your next few sentences. Bowen, does that clarify? So the first sentence of your conclusion paragraph explains the importance of the thesis. So it's general. My thesis was important because. You are better off agreeing with my thesis because. Like, that's really what you're explaining to the reader. They've now read your essay, and by this point, when you get to the conclusion, you were just telling them what they've learned and how they're better off because of learning these things. Does that make sense to everyone? And as Gersimer just wrote in the chat, that's a wonderful way to think of it. So for a problem solution essay, we have to write why is it good that someone has thought about this issue, thought about these problems and solutions, these causes and effects, these similarities and differences. How are they better off? How is their thinking better off? How is their knowledge better off? So I think you're all on the same page here. The first sentence, you're basically telling your reader, You're better because you've read my essay and you now understand this. Because. And you're telling them what they've gained. Okay, now a question. What is the most important sentence of body paragraph 1? The topic sentence, your examples and explanations, or your conclusion sentence? As Naomi and Gersimer, and I'm sure others are thinking, what's the conclusion? Because that's what I proved by the end of body paragraph 1. That's what I showed the reader by the end of body paragraph 1. The topic, sentence, and the conclusion are connected. But think of it like this. When you start let's say we start class, I'd say, okay, in the next hour, we are going to do this. That's the topic sentence. The conclusion takes place at the end of the class. In this class, you did this. You learned this. You achieved this. So because of this, that summary at the end, the conclusion, is the most important sentence of a body paragraph. So in our conclusion paragraph, we are focusing on our conclusions from each of the body paragraphs. So go to body paragraph 1 and read your conclusion sentence. Now, jump to your conclusion paragraph at the very end of your essay. Does the conclusion paragraph explain the importance of the conclusion of body paragraph 1? Yes, no, kind of. Okay, so Bowen's indicated no. So Bowen, if your answers to these following questions are no, what's the easiest, to try to make fixes or changes to the conclusion paragraph, or to throw it out and just start it again, or write a new version? How about others? Your conclusion, does it explain the importance of the end of body paragraph 1? So, Gerline, same thing. Can you fix that? And you might just be able to add the importance of. And Gersimer, if you're just missing those things, you might find it easier just to throw out, as Naomi said, your conclusion paragraph and re-outline and redraft this. Because really, all you have to do is answer these 5 questions and your conclusion's done. What is the importance of my thesis? The importance of my thesis is, there's how you begin your conclusion. What's the importance of the last sentence of body paragraph 1? You go back and you read it and say, okay, that's what body paragraph 1 ends with. So why was that important? Okay. My first discussion in body paragraph 1 was important because. We do the same for body paragraph 2 and body paragraph 3 in your conclusion paragraph at the very end. So in this way, you are summarizing some of what you've already written, not all of it. You're summarizing very specific sentences, the concluding sentences, but then you're adding to it. When I did this in body paragraph 2, the conclusion, it was important because. It helped you, the reader, understand because. So you explain the importance of your thesis, your conclusion, sentence for body paragraph 1, 2, and 3. And it's best if you do this separate. For the thesis, body paragraph 1, 2, and 3. So these are just separate sentences. And then you conclude your conclusion by elaborating on the overall significance of the thesis. Meaning, generally speaking, like here now, only now do we become general. You as a reader are better because you've understood what I've written, you've understood what I've explained. Here's how you're better off. If you come across this situation, come across this problem, come across this issue, how are you now in a better position to deal with it? So elaborate on or add to the overall importance, the overall significance of the thesis. So, by show of hands, meaning thumbs up, who here needs to make no changes to their conclusion paragraph? Okay. Different question then. And if this applies to you, give me a thumbs up. Who here needs to throw out their conclusion paragraph and write a new version? Thank you, Gerline. Thank you, Gerline. Thank you, Pawan. Kersimmer. Thank you, Andy. So how long do you think this will take you? Like, is this 20 minutes of work to make these improvements? And Kersimmer, I'm looking at you here. Don't even start this until you're confident with your body paragraphs. Okay, so here's what we're going to ask you all to do. So you're going to do a bit of work here. I want you to either make improvements to or throw out and rewrite your conclusion paragraph right now. I'm going to give you 20 minutes to 10:05. It does not have to be perfect by 10:05, but you want to make sure the structure follows this. So you are explaining the importance of the conclusion sentences of body paragraphs. So you're not summarizing entire body paragraphs. You go to, well, this is how I ended body paragraph 1. It was important because. This is how I ended body paragraph 2. It was important because. Because some of you in your conclusions are summarizing everything. That's way too much. The conclusion is meant to remind your reader, who may be stupid or may be dumb, do you remember when I talked about this in body paragraph 1? And they'll go, yeah, it was important because. Next sentence, you remember when I talked about this in body paragraph 2? And the reader will go, yeah, well, it was important because. And then, do you remember when I talked about body paragraph 3? And they'll go, yeah, this is why it was important for you to understand that. And I go, oh, okay, now I see. Hopefully the reader is not that dumb, which means they understood all this before. But your conclusion now is your last chance, if your reader has not yet agreed with you, to agree with you. So this is your last chance to convince them. And the easiest way to convince them is say, when I did this, it was important because. When I did this, it was important because. And hopefully somewhere along the way they go, okay, yeah, now I agree. I see why it was important. So I'm going to ask you to make those improvements to your conclusion body paragraph. In some cases, you're throwing it out and starting over. In some cases, you're just making improvements to individual sentences. At 10:05, we're going to try doing step 4 again, at which point you're going to be able to say, yep, or maybe, kind of, no. So I'm going to stop my video and mute myself. I will stay here on Zoom, however, if you have questions, but I'm going to ask you to make these improvements to your conclusion paragraph. And we'll start again at 10:05 when we'll do the last step, step 5. Any questions? So, Gersimer, this is why I indicated don't do this step. You're going to have to be doing work on your body paragraphs. So rather than doing this right now for step 4, just take the 20 minutes to start making the changes and improvements, or in some cases, maybe throwing out a body paragraph and re-outlining it. So take the time now to start doing that work. Okay, Gersimer? Your conclusion paragraph. I'm going to ask you a few questions about it, and you're going to answer either yes, no, or kind of. Okay, let's start with the general question. Does your conclusion do more than repeat what you've already said? Yes, no, kind of. Okay, so thank you, Andy, for indicating kind of. So this is how you want to think about when you're explaining the importance. It's not necessarily what you've already said. You can go an extra step and explain it differently or give more detail in your explanation of the importance. Okay. Read the first sentence of your conclusion. Does it explain the importance of your thesis? Yes, no, kind of. Okay. The next sentence of your conclusion should connect to your conclusion of body paragraph 1. Does this second sentence explain the importance of the conclusion of body paragraph 1? Yes, no, kind of. Go to the next sentence. Does this next sentence explain the importance of the conclusion of body paragraph 2? Yes, no, kind of. Go to your next sentence. Does this sentence explain the importance of the conclusion of body paragraph 3? Yes, no, kind of. And remember, if your answer is ever kind of, think about, well, why is it only kind of? Whatever your answer is to that question in your head is the detail you want to add or change in that sentence. And finally, the last sentence of your conclusion. Does it elaborate, meaning add? That's what all elaborate means. It's add or increase on the overall significance of the thesis. So by add, you're basically getting more general here. How is the reader better for having read and understood and or agreed with your thesis? Yes, no, kind of. Thank you, Gurleen. And again, if you notice the kind of, if that's your response, just think, okay, why is it only kind of? Whatever your answer is to that question is what you want to add or change in this sentence. Naomi, are you okay? You have a look on your face that I'm worried.
I use 2 sentences for the to the end of the conclusion part.
Okay. So then just read the 2, like whatever you consider the very, very end of your essay. So the conclusion. So you would ask the same question after and looking at those 2. Does it elaborate or add on to the overall significance and importance of your thesis, of the topic? Yes, no, kind of. Because I recognize all of you made different choices as to how you organize sentences. So if a sentence doesn't exactly match, that's fine. Instead, find the ones that do and ask the same question. Does that help, Naomi?
Yeah.
Okay. You seem to be almost smiling.
I'm just wondering, can I use two sentences? Because it's hard to use one sentence to give a conclusion, I think.
Oh yeah. So the better question is answer or think about is this. Do you have enough words remaining to use two sentences?
No.
No. Okay. So if you're already way over, well, then the answer to your question is I need to try to get this down to one. But
Okay.
because remember, you can go up to 10% over 1,200 words. So you can probably go up to about 330, 340, somewhere up there. So if you still have the length, sure. But if not, then you have to start thinking about how do I shorten this? You could always shorten it somewhere else in the essay to give yourself this option later. So this is part of the choices that you make.
Okay, I'll try to.
And Bowen's asking, I think, a similar question in that the first sentence of her conclusion, she discusses the thesis and why it's important, but didn't make it as detailed considering that the conclusion will be too long. Is it okay if she doesn't write the whole thesis as she wrote in the introduction? Well, yeah. Nowhere in your conclusion do you have to repeat your thesis. Because isn't that your thesis as well? What you did in body paragraphs 1, 2, and 3? So often students get caught up saying, I have to repeat my thesis. Well, guess what? When you're talking about what you did in body paragraphs 1, 2, and 3, that is your thesis. And so I often say to my students, I always push them, don't just repeat your thesis. Explain why it's important. And when you explain why the pieces or the parts of the thesis are important, that'll be more useful to your reader than just repeating what you already said. So in that first sentence, Bowen, you don't repeat your thesis. You explain my thesis was important because. And then when you go into the next sentence, this part of my thesis was important because. This part of my thesis was important because. This part of my thesis was important because that's really what you're doing at those conclusions. Does that clarify for you, Bowen? And I'm getting a few head nods from Naomi as well. Does that help you both there in regard to your confidence regarding this paragraph?
Yes.
Perfect. And that's all I want to talk about for conclusions, or the conclusion paragraph. Once you know the structure and you realize that it's not a repetition, but instead this part was important because, this part was important because, this part was important because. It's like what you would say to a small child or someone who's not very smart when you're making the connections for them. You remember this? It was important because. Do you remember this part? It was important because. Because hopefully, by the time your audience gets to the end of body paragraph 4, you're done. They agree with you because you've done such a great job. But you might have done a great job, but the reader might be stupid. So you need this conclusion paragraph to one last time. You're almost like this. You're hitting them over the head with, this was important because, this was important because, this was important because. So in the conclusion, you're allowed to be much more direct. Because you're doing the conclusion in case all the work you did before was unsuccessful for your reader. So now you're hitting them over the head with, this is what you're supposed to know. This is what you're supposed to know. This is what you're supposed to know. That's how the conclusion was explained to me by my English teacher 20 years ago, saying the only reason we have to include in conclusions is if the reader's stupid. Because anyone who isn't stupid, they'll know what you've done by reading it. The conclusion is not there for most readers. It's for the ones who are forgetful or stupid. And so treat them like that in the conclusion. You remember this part? This is what it meant. Remember this part? This is what it meant. Remember this part? This is what it meant. And when my teacher gave me that example, I said, okay, I now know how to do a conclusion because it just seems so repetitive. Like, why would I do this when I already did all the work? It's just your last chance to convince those readers of your work that aren't as smart as you. Feeling more confident about body paragraphs, about your essay? Okay, then let me show you the last step. Hey, remember, we've done no proofreading up to this point. All we've done is focused on your ideas, and that's the point of self-editing. In steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, you focused on your ideas and you made major revisions. To answer the following question, do your ideas come across clearly to your reader? So right now, do you think most of your ideas come across clearly to your reader? Yes, no, probably. As Gerline indicates, well, yeah, and she typed that really quick. Like, yeah, I'm feeling really confident that my ideas are clear. That's why we do the self-editing. My ideas, I'm good with. That's how you should all be feeling right now. And if you're not, well, at least now you know the changes you want to make to your ideas, so you will have that confidence. After you think and come to believe your ideas are good, now let's make sure the sentences or the spelling and punctuation is error-free. So it's only now, when we're feeling good about our ideas, that we turn our attention to grammar mistakes, awkward sentences, repetition, citation errors, style, formatting, things like that. It can wait. If you were under a time limit and you handed in your essay right now without checking the grammar, who cares? You're feeling quite good about the ideas being good. And this happens sometimes in a sit-down final exam. You start editing, you fix your ideas because that's what's going to give you your mark. Well, the ideas are good. Sure, there's spelling mistakes or some grammar mistakes, but the ideas are good. And what's the teacher grading? That I know my ideas, that I can explain my ideas. So that's why proofreading is saved till the very end. Because if you get it, if you have time, great. But if you don't, who cares? So, when we turn to proofreading, whenever possible, leave time between when you first write the paper and when you edit. We did that. You finished your first draft last week. And then we started editing. Steps 1, 2, and 3. Then we left more time between those improvements and today. When time has passed, it allows you to read your writing more carefully and more confidently, saying, well, there's a mistake, I'll fix it. There's a mistake, I'll fix it. When it's really fresh, meaning you start editing right after you finish writing, often what happens is you don't want to make changes. Even if you notice there's flaws or mistakes or kind ofs, it's like, oh, but I worked so hard on this. I don't want to make changes. If you give yourself a chance to rest, even 30 minutes, I finish my draft, I'm gonna go have dinner. And then I'll come back and do the editing. you will find that finding weaknesses and making improvements to your ideas is much, much easier. So think about this during your final exam. After you finish your draft, your essay draft, you'll be feeling as though, okay, all I got to do now is edit it and I can hand it in. But I'm going to give myself a 30-minute break or an hour break before I do the editing. You give yourself a chance to rest physically, but also give your brain a chance to rest. And then when you edit, you'll find you can do it faster and with more focus. And you'll find the things you want to improve. When you get to the proofreading, read it out loud, slowly and carefully. Hearing your paper out loud may help you catch mistakes that you don't see when you are reading them. It forces you to go slow. If you are using a printed, you print out your essay, take a sheet of paper and slowly go down. You can do this on a screen as well. But again, you want to only focus on one line at a time. Proofreading is only 20% of the editing process. So you've now all spent about, if you add it all up, about an hour, maybe an hour and a half editing. Total. If we take last class, the improvements you made, and today, maybe 90 minutes. How much then is going to be the proofreading? About 20 minutes. So you go slow. And look for one type of grammar error at a time. Don't try to fix them all. Look for one type. This helps you focus. For example, let's say you want to look for article mistakes. Read through the paper once, looking only for article mistakes. If you come across it, fix it. And you do this partly to build confidence, because then you'll know, oh, okay, I checked for articles. They're fixed. Now I'm going to go through and look for prepositions. They're fixed. If you try to fix too many types of errors at the same time, you're going to find by the end, you're not going to be feeling as comfortable or as confident that you found them all. And perhaps most importantly, proofread for your common errors. So you're not trying to find every single type of grammar issue. No. You're looking for the ones that you know are a pattern for you. So, Naomi, and then Bowen. Do you remember the diagnostic assignment?
Yes.
What's your pattern, Naomi? And if you don't remember, that's fine. You can go look it up. But I guarantee you some of those patterns are going to be found in your draft. I guarantee it. More than other types. Bowen, do you remember any of your patterns?
I remember there were 3 or 4 patterns, but I don't remember their name. Yeah, preposition was one of them.
Okay. Do you remember how you fixed them?
Yes, I searched YouTube videos, as you said, and then I just, when I did diagnostic assignment, I fixed those mistakes.
Okay. Since then, have those types of mistakes been present in your writing?
I think I have improvised.
You mean improved?
Yeah.
Okay, so you haven't completely got rid of them, but that you have improved how often they take place. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So then here's your homework, everyone. Go back to your diagnostic and write down on a list, this is my pattern from my diagnostic. Remind yourself of how do I find and fix these? And then for homework, find and fix your pattern, your common errors in this essay. So that when we meet on Wednesday, you're going to be very confident with your essay. So you know what? Ideas, I think they're really clear. And the writing, I found most of my own pattern of mistakes because those are the ones I've been trying to improve all semester. You can't fix every grammar mistake out there. Not possible. So fix the ones you know are a pattern for you, that are common for you. That can be an incredible sense of accomplishment then. Say, you know what? I know how to fix my own mistakes. So then when you hand in this essay on Wednesday, you're going to be like, you know what? I'm confident the ideas are clear and the reader will understand them. And I'm confident that the writing is mostly error-free. Not exactly and not entirely, but mostly error-free. So when Beeve grades it, he's going to be grading my ideas and my understanding and not my spelling mistakes or my punctuation or verb tenses. That's how you want to feel when you hand this in on Wednesday. That the teacher is going to grade my understanding and my explanation of my understanding and won't have to worry about, or grammar mistakes won't get in the way of the teacher understanding what I'm telling them. How are you all doing? Is your confidence in your essay gone up, stayed the same, or gone down? Gone up. Good. Almost. Andy, you're borrowing from Grisimer. Almost up or maybe up. Okay, so I am going to have a bit of time for individuals, students wanting to. Oh, wow, there's a raccoon right outside my window. I was wondering what it was. But here's what your homework is. Some of you still had a few changes or improvements you want to make to the ideas in your essay. And then fixing the grammar mistakes, the common issues we identified early this semester. Go back to your diagnostic, remind yourself what those are if you've forgotten them, and then spend some time between now and Wednesday improving those, fixing as many of those mistakes as you can. Your essay is going to be due at the end of next class. So not at the beginning, it's going to be due at the end. I'm going to have one more activity for us to do during class for a few last minute things to check before you hand in an essay. With that, however, I want to see what time would we like to start on Wednesday. We can start at 8 a.m. It'll give you more time at the end. We can start at 8:30. We can start at 9 a.m. I'm good with any one of those times. Any requests? Bowen indicated 8 a.m. I'm happy to do that. Scarlett as well, Grissom. Okay, we'll start at 8 a.m. I figured I'd give you the option. One final thing. Everything you have now done regarding improvements, we worked off that PowerPoint slide. However, there's another document. It's a summary document I make for my students called the self-edit checklist. It's the entire PowerPoint on one page in a list form. And let's see if it loads properly. No, let me open it. There we are. So you'll notice there's a lot less details on this because it's just meant as a summary. So check the assignment instructions, check this, but it's meant as a checkbox. So you can use this as well if you are double checking your essay. I highly recommend downloading this and the PowerPoint slides to your computer and use this on any essay that you are asked to write in this class, but any other class over the next year or the next few years as you are in writing courses that require you to write essays. This isn't cheating by having this here, because I said at the beginning, you don't have to memorize this stuff. You just have to remember to do it. Check these things, because it'll not only increase confidence on your part, it'll make it much easier to get full marks for your explanation of thinking. Any questions I can answer before I end class today?
Professor, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes,
Naomi.
Is the essay title, can we just use or question like to?
Great question. When we started, I suggested just use your question as your title. And I did that on purpose because it probably kept some of you focused as you were writing. If you kept seeing your questions, like, oh yeah, I got to answer that. It's a wonderful, simple trick. I have students that spend way too much time trying to come up with creative titles. And I always tell them, tell you what, when someone pays you to write a book, come up with a creative title. But if it's for an assignment, if your question is your title, at least then your teacher knows right from the beginning, this is what Naomi is answering in this essay. So I always tell my students, don't overthink the title. Use your question as your title. You could even say an answer to the following question and put the title. Like, that's why every essay I write and even instruct my students, don't overthink the title. Use your question as your title.
Okay.
Good question, Naomi, because when I read some of your drafts, some of you were trying to be creative with your title, and I wonder how many minutes so-and-so spent coming up with that creative title. Because in the end, if you want to be creative, great, but it doesn't help your grade at all. Like, I've never given a good grade based upon, that's a really good title. Like, I've never done that. But I have often, and I mean this honestly, if I see a really clear question as a title, I go, that's a really clear, easy to understand question. I usually find it easier to give higher marks. Like, I'll be honest, because I say, they know exactly what they were trying to answer. And, I can see the answers in this paragraph, in this paragraph, in this paragraph. So the creativity doesn't always work. Instead, a clear title is a clear question is a wonderful title.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Great question. Okay, your homework. Step 5, first, make any improvements you want to your essay that we talked about today. You may have noticed in your conclusion or in other body paragraphs. Then do step 5, which is the proof reading. Once that's done, you should be feeling pretty confident about your essay. Take a break. You could do that work today if you wanted. Maybe tomorrow, open up your essay again and go through the self-edit one more time on your own. As a way of practicing the self-edit, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but also so you're feeling really confident about your essay when I see you again on Wednesday.
Professor?
When we meet on Wednesday at 8 a.m., I'll have about an hour. Yes, Andy.
Yeah. And I have one question about my conclusion paragraph. And
Okay.
I found that when I write about the body paragraph 3 about my opinion, it's my conclusion of my opinion is almost very similar about the conclusion paragraph in just in the final paragraph, the conclusion paragraph.
So the last paragraph looks a lot like your body paragraph 3?
Yeah.
Okay. So in body paragraph 3, what were you doing? Were you evaluating or were you summarizing what you'd already done?
Summarizing.
Okay, so that's why they look similar. So think about when you go to step 3 of the self-edit, take a look at body paragraph 3 and ask yourself, well, rather than summarize this point, can I evaluate it? Can I explain the strengths or weaknesses of it? And I think when you do that, you'll realize, okay, I can make them not similar because you weren't really doing an evaluation in body paragraph 3. You were summarizing points, which is okay, but then you got to say something about them. Like that's what an evaluation is.
I mean, okay. Maybe you mean that in like I write the possible solution in the second paragraph, and into some possible solution, I found that is some limited. There is some limited about it. So I write.
Yeah, you see how much I'm shaking my head there? That's exactly it.
I got it.
And this is for anybody, everyone. Let's say you did a problem and a solution.
Yeah.
You identified a problem in the world. Great. You came up with possible solutions. Great. Do you honestly think you're the first person to have thought about this problem?
No.
No. And the fact that you're not the first person, and the fact that it's still a problem means that some of the solutions that others have come up with, as well as you, there's reasons why they haven't been done. Like there's honestly reasons that this problem still exists. So people come up with a solution. Some of them are politicians. Some of them are presidents of countries. Okay. They still can't make it work. They still can't fix it because there's something getting in the way. And so often a politician would say, well, here's the solution. Go and do it. And then the workers go and try to do it and they go, this isn't really working. Yeah. Often politicians don't deal with that, but people in the real world have to deal with, why isn't this working as well as, say, the president said it would, or the teacher said it would? So that's really what you're doing in that evaluation paragraph. You could go through your own solutions and say, this one has the best chance of working because. This one does not have a very good possibility because. Does that help, Andy?
Yeah, I got it. It's very helpful.
Okay, great question.
Thanks.
Okay. That was a great question. I'm here to answer any others. Are there any other questions before I let you go? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. I see a lot more smiles on your faces right now. And, that's the point. Anytime you're asked to write a major essay, you should not be angry by the time you're done it. You should not be sad or nervous by the time you're done it. You should actually be quite proud and say, you know what? I did everything that was required. And most important, it's clear. And I'm confident it's clear to anyone who reads this. And that's really what we've spent the entire last week doing. Building your confidence because you are confident what you've written is clear. So great job, everyone. I'll see everyone on Wednesday at 8 a.m., at which point I'm going to have one more activity to build up your confidence a bit more. And then you'll have some time to make any last changes before you hand it in. I'm going to end class, so you're welcome to leave. If there's anyone who wants to stay because they have a few follow-up questions, feel free to stay. Okay. Thanks for your participation, everyone. Thanks, Naomi.
Bye, Professor.
Bye,
Bye.
Pawan.
Bye.
Bye, Naomi.